Greetings, my little Gigi's. Well, tonight we're going to have something quite quick and simple to prepare. Okay, I've got here some cod. You can have tilapia or whatever it is, any other kind of firm white fish, but we're using cod because we're going to make pan fried fish fillet with soy sauce. Well, actually it's with soy sauce and ginger. So quite simple. You're going to want your fish. I've got about 500 grams worth of fish there. You want about 1/8 of a teaspoon of some white pepper, ground white pepper, about 1/2 teaspoon of salt. You're going to want some ginger. We need to prepare that, and I'll show you how much we want when we come do that. A smallish bunch of spring onions, 120 mils of water, about a teaspoon of corn flour, and also you're going to want another 4 teaspoons of corn flour, another lot of white pepper, 1/2 teaspoon of sugar, 4 teaspoons of soy sauce, and about 1/2 teaspoon of sesame oil, and that's all we want. You can accompany this with rice. You can accompany it with, well, you don't have to accompany it with anything you don't want to, but that's what we're making tonight. Now my oven's on, but that's purely to keep things a bit warm. Okay, so and also it's one of them things, once we start cooking it, it's bish bash bosh. So pan fried fish fillets with soy sauce and ginger. So the first thing we want to do is basically pat dry our fish, okay, on both sides. I did drain this. This came in a little packet, and it was quite a lot of moisture in it. And by the way, you're not getting a history lesson. You're not getting any other kind of lesson. This is just going to be straightforward. Cook this, and then I just need to. Oh, there's fish all leaking out over the side there. They're skinless, by the way, and boneless, obviously. So let me just clean this up, and then we're going to season this, and then just let it rest 15 minutes while we just prep our ginger and onion. So I'll put my board up here so it's a little bit closer and see what we're doing. And so what we just want to do is just give this a light sprinkle with about half of that salt. I mean, you can have a little bit more if you want. We're just going to season that with that, and then same with that white pepper, sorry, black pepper. And again, if you want a bit more, that's up to you. And then flip them over, and we're just then going to season the other side. I might have to get a little bit more white pepper, I think. And then we set this to one side for about 15 minutes, or essentially till however long it takes to prepare the other ingredients. Because like I say, once we start cooking it, it is very much a rapid turnover, because we don't want to overcook the fish. And then we're going to make a little sauce that we accompany it with. But in that meantime, the fish and the onions of that are starting to get cold. So they're part of the reason we've got the oven on. But equally, oh, bloody hell, I need a drink. So my spring onions, I've just trimmed the roots off the bottom, and I've just taken the sort of dried off ends up with green ends, but we want them greens. So the first thing we want to do is essentially chop off the green bit. Now it's going to be the green bit that we're going to end up serving it with. This bit, not so. This is more to get the flavour out. So I'm just sort of cutting that diagonally. To be honest, I don't know why. Makes much difference. You want decent sized pieces that you're going to be able to fish out quite easily. Okay, so I'm just going to set that to one side. Actually, I'm just going to put them there for now. And then you want a piece of ginger, and we're going to want some slices of ginger. So I'm just going to peel this. Okay, bit of an odd shape this bit. And again, we're going to want, a bit like the spring onions, the ginger is a two-parter. One part is going to go in towards adding flavour to the fish as we cook it, and the other part is going to be to go in the final sort of sauce or whatever. So you can see what I've got there, and what I want to do is I'm just going to slice this piece into thin slices. Okay, so you're going to want about 4 odd slices that we're going to keep to one side for a minute. So that's those just slices, but with these slices, what we're going to do is just cut this into sort of matchsticks. Okay, so like I say, these are all going in at different stages. So our final bit of prep will be them green tops. Okay, so I'm just going to transfer that onto my sort of like wok clock, as wok would, not wok, oh, I can't remember his name now. But in some of the other recipes I've done, he does like a wok clock, and he says get all the ingredients in prepared in like a clock. So right, that's my first one in, oh, that's my second, and then you're not doing all like where's that bit, where's that bit, where's that bit. But anyway, let me just get that on there, and then I'll show you what we're going to do with them bits. With these green bits, now I got this from Cook Stacey Cook. Oh, I need a wine. And her green bits were quite a lot longer. So what she said was like, what we do is we fold it over. But by the time she folded it over, it was about that length. And then, it probably easy if I do it individually. And we're basically going to cut this, basically, just doing it again. We're just going to cut this into strips. And like I say, this is, oh, let me just slice that one. This is going to go in at a different stage. All right, there's a lot of flavour in these green bits. Generally, we tend to like chop up the white bits, and we don't really do a lot with the green. But in this instance, we are. So, I'm just going to finish that, transfer that on there. Then I'm going to move that off of there because I need to get on the burner, and we're going to start cooking. Remember, like I said, we're cooking a bit, doing stuff, bish bash bosh, and it all sort of moves together, if you like. Right, so back to our fish. So this is where I said 4 tablespoons of corn flour, but to be honest, if you need a little bit more, use a little bit more. What we want to do is just rub this corn flour over both sides of this fish. Okay, and like I say, both sides. So once I've done this side, flip the bits over and do the other side. So like I say, if you run out of corn flour or whatever, just add a little bit more. We're just giving it this. That's really annoying, keep twisting around like that. Thank you very much. Stop annoying me. We're just giving it a light coating. Look, I'll say that, and then there's loads down in there. And then, there's a bone in there. Some of that feels a little bit like there's bones in it. And then, we're good to go. So let me just clean up this little bit of mess I made and my hands, and we'll start cooking it. So frying pan, or in this case my saute pan. I was going to use my frying pan, but I decided to go for this one just simply because it'd probably be less messy. But either way, I've got, because again the way Tesco's work, really you want like one nice chunky fillet per person, you know, about 250 grams each, but of course they do it a bit thinner, so it's going to take up most of my pan. So we're just going to add a tablespoon or so of oil just to coat the bottom of the pan, and then what you're going to do is you're going to add in the stem part, the white bit if you like, of your spring onion, and you're going to add your ginger, the slices, not the matchsticks. Okay, and then the oil perhaps wasn't quite hot enough there. Once that starts sort of sizzling, as it were, we're going to introduce our fish. So the point of this first stage is to get flavour from them onions and that ginger into the oil, which then will impart those flavours into the fish. So what you have to do is keep an eye on these bits. We don't want this burning. Okay, don't mind it browning, but we don't want it burning. Right, it's had about a minute. And you can hear it sizzling, so we're just going to push this to one side, and now we're going to put our fish fillets into there, and once they're in there, we want to leave it. Don't move your fish about because it'll start breaking up. So we want about 4 minutes per side. I've got raw fish on my hand, so I'm just being a bit careful with. Keep your eye on the spring onion and the ginger, and if need be, stir that, but don't touch the fish. If you touch the fish, you'll fuck it up. So don't touch the fucking fish. If this was salmon, actually you can actually start seeing with salmon when it's sort of ready to flip, because of the way the colour changes upside. But it's a very difficult to see it with this white fish. Okay, but actually, and it's a good job I did use this pan rather than the frying pan, because it does spit quite a bit. I'm still keeping that change, but we're almost ready to flip that fish. Okay, now I said to you 4 minutes. I've actually given it a little bit longer, partly because I'm on a small burner, so the heat is more concentrated in one area. But essentially we want to just make sure, keep smacking on me, swearing in me being bastard. Some of them bits of onion and starting to burn a little, well not burn, sorry, brown a little bit. So I'm just keeping my eye on that. But I'm going to push that to one side, and that's about to go off. So now what we want to do is carefully flip that over and then it's sticking a little bit, and then we're going to give the other side, whoops, see that fish is starting to fall apart there, but that was like a tail end, if you like, a little bit on the thin side. But flip that over, you need to move that a bit over, and carry on monitoring that spring onion. And now we're just going to carry on cooking that for another 4 minutes or so on the other side. Right, let me just move that a minute. And what I'm going to do now is, while that fish is still cooking, we're going to remove the spring onion and the ginger. It hasn't browned that much, but try to, the wife's already been in top her wine up, and she's already said about, because remember I can't smell the bleeding things, so I don't know what this is smelling like, but she said, oh, that smells good. And I said, well, all that is really, that is just the spring onion and the ginger that we're flavouring the oil with. So I'm just going to put that over there for now. You could use that later, but now I need a spoon. So now what I'm going to do is, while that's doing that, I said I had 120 mils of water, and I've got about a teaspoon of corn flour, and we're just going to mix that up now. Okay, so it's quite a weak sort of corn flour slurry. Okay, mixing really well. Put that to one side, and that's going to go in our sauce. So our final thing we're going to be doing is making a sauce. Remember that soy sauce, sugar, white pepper, sesame oil, and what we've just made up there. And this is my wine. So I've got some plates ready. We're going to put this onto the plates. We're going to put it into the oven, just to keep it warm, and then in that same pan we'll make our sauce up. Now I've taken out the big chunks of ginger, got rid of that. Might as well keep them other bits because they're not too brown. So now what we want to do is turn the heat off for a minute, and we're just going to remove that fish. Ooh, let's see, it's all just flaking apart, that fish, and just place that onto the plate. And then a bit, shall I give a bit there now? And then we're just going to keep this warm in the oven, okay? Because we've got to, like I say, cook the rest of that onion and make the sauce. So I'm just going to transfer that, and then I'm just going to keep it warm in that oven. So we want to retain that oil because it's got all the flavours in it. Unfortunately, this fish did stick a bit, but I'm going to leave that in there. Don't really matter. So at this point, I'm now just going to take then ginger strips, and we're just going to toss them in that oil for about 30 seconds. It's not really deglazing, but I'm catching that crispy bits of the fish at the bottom. Okay, time to have a swig. And now it's time to take them green bits and toss them in there. And we just want to toss that around in the oil about a minute, essentially just to heat this up. So we're not like trying to make it too soggy, too crisp, or even too crispy on the other hand, but we just want to get some of that flavoured oil softening up them onions a bit. Okay, let me just move that over there a minute. You might wonder why, well, perhaps you might not give a shit, and in fact you can't really see. I've got another 2 plates out. That's simply because, just in case them plates are a bit hot when we bring them out of the oven, we'll rest them on that. So, like I say, we're just going to give that about a minute, and then we're going to get on with the sauce. Just remove them plates from the oven. They are a bit warm, and we're now just going to take some of them spring onions, and what we do is we just place this. I've also got all the crispy bits off at the bottom there of that fish, but it doesn't matter because it's all fish, it's all going the same thing. And we just now collect all them bits of onion up and lay that over our fish. So, like I say, you can just eat it like this. Well, not yet, because I ain't got bloody sauce. Or you can make some rice, plain rice, or you could lentils. It's up to you. So, that's that out the way. So that's just going to go back in that fridge for a minute. Back in that oven for a minute, and we're going to make the sauce. I've turned the heat off for a minute, but we're going to make the sauce in that same pan again. So, pan's gone back on a low heat. And again, we're just using that same dirty pan, if you like, because all there's that flavours in there. And this is where we're going to add in that soy sauce. There's not a lot. We're going to add that sugar in. And we're just going to sort of briefly just sort of mix that together. Warm that through. And now it's starting to bubble. So at this point we're going to add the sesame oil. Okay, and obviously now we just want to mix that in. So it's a bit lost in that pan at the minute. We just want to mix that together. Bring that up to the boil. Wait, don't you spill. I'm all in here. I'm going to stake my bloody hob. So it's not made an awful lot of sauce. Now, when you add this to your fish dish that's in the oven and keep warm, if you were having rice with it, then it's quite a nice little touch to actually tip some of this sauce over the rice. Okay, give a flavour to that. So at this point, now it's starting to bubble a bit, I'm going to add in that white pepper, and just need to mix that back in again. And now we're just going to chuck that corn flour mix in there, doing all the bits that stuck on the bottom. And now it's simply a matter of just clean that off there where I started, and then splash it, because there's still little bits stuck on the bottom of that pan. So we just want to stir this in and bring this up to the boil. Sauce is starting to thicken a little bit. Now, if you'd like your sauce nice and clear, then get all the bits out of the pan, or you could even just clean it. But then you do lose some of that flavours, or flavours, so you lose some of the flavours that are in there. So I'm now just going to turn that heat off, and you can spoon it over the fish, or you can just spoon some round the fish. Doesn't really matter. But there, and grab a fork, and I've put it on the other plate just simply because that plate is a bit warm, and there is our pan fried fillet of fish, ginger and soy sauce. So let's just try a bit of that. So I've got a bit of sauce on that, got some onion. Actually, most of my fish just fell off. Let's give it another go. Here we go. It's not peppery. There's quite a lot of white pepper in that. Not peppery. But you do get that hint of pepper there. You got the onion. I'll start to get a bit of heat come through, but that, given how few ingredients are in that, that is exceptionally tasty. So, want a nice simple little dish, minimum ingredients, apart from perhaps sesame oil. They're all things you'd have in the cupboard. Well, I presume you've got soy sauce, fresh root ginger. Yeah, everything else you should have. That is a very nice, simple, very tasty pan fried fish fillet with soy sauce and ginger. Actually, probably that heat's coming from the ginger, not just the pepper. Give it a go.